Welcome to today's Masterclass, where we're going to talk about the art of the pitch. Today, I'm going to speak to you from three different perspectives. One, I've given dozens of pitches through my entrepreneurial career. I've raised over $35 million on the basis of the pitch. I've been acquired for over $1 billion on the basis of a pitch. I've had CEOs of Fortune 500 companies excited and engaged and recommending strategic alignment with our company on the basis of a pitch. Two, I've advised, mentored many startups such as yourselves on how to pitch, and I've been on judging panels of a number of pitch competitions. Three, I'm an angel investor, and I've been on the receiving end of many startup pitches. So suffice it to say, I know the power of the pitch, and I'm happy to share some of the best practices with you today. Pitching is a bit like applying for a job and submitting your resume along with hundreds of other candidates. Fewer than 1% of startups get VC funding. So how do you get noticed when VCs get more than 100 emails a week? They review an average of 10 pitches a week with a goal of funding 2 to 3 businesses a year. Those are very thin odds. Fewer than 5% of startups generate over $1 million in revenue. So how do you get stressed and overworked customers to engage with you, an unproven startup, in this incredibly noisy market where everyone's competing for customer attention? That's the power of the pitch that I'd like to share with you today. My promise to you, if you apply the lessons from today's talk, you will win pitch competitions. Everyone who applies the rules we discussed today will get investor funding, and you'll impress customers, earn their trust, and kickstart your sales journey. As an added bonus, contact me to review your pitch after you've applied the lessons from today's talk. The structure of a pitch is pretty consistent. There are lots of variations. Here's one from Guy Kawasaki, who was in charge of marketing for the Apple Macintosh computer way back, a true evangelist himself. And truthfully, not much has changed. Start with the title, problem and opportunity that you're solving, your value proposition, underlying magic, business model, go-to-market plan, competitive analysis, management team, financial projections, and where you are on your journey. 10 slides, easy, right? You just have to make them look nice and you're good to go. Well, not even close. There are 35 million search results that tell you how to pitch to investors. There are thousands and thousands of workshops and videos on how to give a pitch. So I have to ask you, why is it that only 1 in 100 startups gets funded? And how do you beat those odds? That's what I'm going to talk about today. Today's discussion isn't so much about the structure and the mechanics of the pitch. That's the easy bit. What I want to talk about today is how you make a world-class, standing ovation-worthy pitch that lands with impact. Now, I'm sure you all have pitch decks today, but I have 2 questions for you. 1, how do you know if your pitch is any good? 2, what precisely do you need to do right now to improve your pitch? That's the heart of today's talk. By the end of the next hour, you should be able to score your pitch, identify where you score lowest, and know exactly what you have to do to make it better. A pitch deck isn't something you can whip together overnight. It's something that takes months and months to curate. Like most important things in life, it's a continuous improvement process. A pitch is kind of like storytelling, and storytelling requires 2 things, substance and style. Substance, you need a great plot, a hero, a villain, and a conflict that needs to be resolved. And style, you need to tell the story in a way that puts the reader on the edge of their seats and right in the middle of the action. So this presentation is divided into those 2 sections: building the substance, a solid foundation of your business, and style, or packaging, that tells the story in an engaging and compelling way that gets action and outcomes. Okay, I'm going to throw a lot at you and it's going to come fast. I'll share a copy of the presentation with you at the end along with a worksheet scorecard to help you out. So stay with me as we run through each section. Some of what I say may seem a bit unconventional, and that's a good thing because you don't want to look like everybody else. So let's talk about how you go about building the core substance of your pitch. To make it a bit more real for you, I'm going to build the presentation around a fictitious startup called AI 8-Ball. This is a toy we used to play with when I was a kid. You think about a question, turn it over, and it gives you an amazingly insightful answer like, make it so. The AI 8-Ball startup is developing technology that can accurately predict the future. Creating substance is all about what I call the 5 T's: trouble, technology, traction, treasure, and team. This is the meat of every investor presentation, and it's largely the basis for how I evaluate whether or not to invest in an early stage startup. Right off the bat in your pitch, I'm looking to understand what problem you're solving, how well you understand it, and how big of a problem it is for your customers. A good trouble story is composed of 4 things: the current environment and problems with it, customer quotes on what frustrates them the most, financial impact of the problem on their business, and finally, make it real. Now, you could stand up and say that blockchain or AI or Web3 is going to change the world, and most investors will simply tune you out at that point. Why? Because you're leading with technology. Don't do that. You should tell a story. So start by introducing the main character, your customer. Who are they? How do they do whatever it is that they do? What keeps them up at night? You could talk about how Fortune 500 companies are struggling with blah, 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 but that's too abstract and you're not making it real. Draw your audience into the story by bringing the characters to life. Paint a picture of a typical real-world customer. If you're early stage and you don't have any real customers to point to, you can use a fictitious composite customer that stitches together what you've heard from all your discovery calls. That's fine. We also want to include both qualitative and quantitative stories to explain the pain. Let me show you what I mean. To our AI 8-Ball case study. We've spoken with dozens of HR recruitment professionals over the past couple of months, and I'd like to share with you what we've heard. This is the story of Acme Technologies, which is a composite of our discovery calls. One person we spoke with told us, "I'm frustrated because there's too much friction in the recruitment process." Notice how it's not us talking about our solution. This is all real-world evidence using the voice of the customer. How do you get qualitative stories and quantitative numbers? Well, we start by asking customers, what frustrates you about what you're doing today? Then just sit back and take notes. If they're not frustrated, then chances are they don't have a big problem for you to solve. Quantitative insights can be a bit tricky because people may not know or they may not want to share the information with you. So I like to start with internet research, then test it with customers. For example, tell customers that our research indicates that it takes between 40 and 50 days to recruit developers. What are your thoughts? Would you say that you're at the low end or the high end of that range? From there, you can converge on a range that's reflective of real-world experience. Customers are currently following a 6-step recruitment process that looks like this, and the problems exist throughout their workflow, which I'm calling out in very real and quantitative ways in my pitch. So what I've done right up front in my presentation, I've demonstrated that I understand the customer well, I understand the problem well, there's a lot of pain, and I know where the pain is. It's also quantitative pain in dollars and cents. I've made it real for the audience by telling the story through the eyes of a composite customer. And the story is backed by lots of hard evidence that's difficult for even a cynical investor to disagree with. I've immediately established credibility with the investor audience. All this content would be collected from multiple customer discovery calls and from internet research that's then corroborated with customers. I guarantee that your audience will be paying attention and interested to hear more after your opening slides. So, how do you know if you have a good problem story in your pitch deck? Here's a scorecard for you to mark yourself on how good your problem story is today. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read through the slides. I'll leave that for you to do after the call today. If you already have a slide in your pitch deck, how well did you score? What do you need to do to bump up your score? Look for anything in your story that's not supported by real-world customer evidence. If you don't have evidence, it's not real. So do some more discovery calls to uncover the facts. I recommend you involve your mentor advisor and ask them if they agree with your scoring, because oftentimes you're too close to the business and you need someone outside to be the impartial judge looking at your evidence to make sure it's accurate and complete. This is a great opportunity for you to take out your scorecard, score yourself, see how you're doing. So pause the video now and go do that, then come back and we'll continue. I think it goes without saying that founders love to talk about their product. In reality, though, it's a small but important component of the total pitch. So don't go too deep here or you'll run out of time and your investor audience won't get their core questions answered. Your objective is to tell enough to get your audience interested, but not flood them with everything they ever wanted to know about your product. My first startup, I would go into customer meetings and I'd launch into a detailed description of my product so they would understand how sophisticated and powerful it was. I was trying to get them to love my baby as much as I did. Inevitably, their eyes glazed over in the first 5 minutes, and meetings ended with feedback like, "Sounds interesting, come back to me when the product's ready," or something vague like that. But their body language told me the real message. So we engaged an external consultant who came in to help us figure out what was wrong. I stood up in front of him and launched into my pitch. 2 minutes into the deep and boring product presentation, he interrupted me. Wait, he said. "Do you know what you have done here? You've got the answer to every CEO's worst nightmare, but you're pitching it all wrong." He then pointed us in the right direction, reducing the deep product pitch into a business transformation story. And with that, we got CEO meetings. They got excited, we won many industry awards, and we sold the business for $1 billion. At this stage in your pitch, there are really only 2 things I care about with respect to your technology. How do you solve the customer's problem, and how unique is it compared to everything else out there? The art of good storytelling is to put the audience in the scene. So make it real for your audience. You've already introduced Acme Technologies and the problems they're facing. So show your audience a day in the life story of how you solve it for Acme. Explain why it's unique and compelling. And most importantly, quantify how much money they can save or make if they adopt your solution. This is something that most startups missed. If you don't have a good economic value model for your customers around your solution, you don't have a viable B2B business. Let me say that again. If you don't have a good customer economic value model, you don't have a viable B2B business. So continuing our AI 8-ball example, so far we've got the main character of our story, Acme Technologies, and the problems they have with their current solution. Now let me introduce AI 8-ball, the hero of our story. Here's how we solve Acme's problem. We're the first AI implementation. We've optimized our solution to, we've aggregated data, whatever. The net effect of our solution is that we help companies like Acme hire great candidates 15% faster and save an average of 8 hours per week per recruiter. And we know this because we understand exactly what their current solution looks like and how we can improve the status quo. Now, if my product were further along, I'd show screenshots or a brief video. I'd tell a day in the life story to make it more real. But my product isn't mature enough yet, so we'll have to settle for something a little bit simpler. Acme is currently spending roughly $1 million a year to recruit 100 software developers. We're charging $100,000 a year, and Acme would save around $200,000 a year, giving them about a 6-month payback. So you can see here that I'm showing the audience a before and after view, what a typical customer looks like, their problems, how we solve their problems, and what the customer's business case would look like. And I'm doing it through the lens of a composite fictitious customer, at least until I have a real customer case study that I can use. There are a couple of ways you can show how you stand out from other vendors. You could use a 2x2 matrix with 2 key customer buying criteria and where you sit relative to other solutions, or you could use a feature comparison table and show how you stack up. Either way, pick attributes that align with your marketing differentiation strategy and the customer buying criteria. For instance, when Steve Jobs stood up to introduce the iPhone, he said he had smart on one axis and easy to use on the other axis, which was the focus of Apple's marketing campaign for years. Notice how they're not features or technology, they're customer benefits that only the iPhone could make. A good competitive analysis helps you build trust with your investors. Be open, show your knowledge of the market, don't badmouth the competition. Instead, say things like, they're good at this, but we're better at that. If you just wanted to make phone calls, then customer could go with blah. If you just want to do emails and texts, then customers could go with blah. But the iPhone lets you do so much more. A couple of things to keep in mind here. You do have competitors, even if it's just the status quo, so don't, under any circumstances, say there are no competitors. Sure, they may not do it like you do, but that's for you to show, not to ignore. Don't compete on price unless you're at least 10 times cheaper. Don't be afraid to challenge the big vendors with something significantly better. Features are easily copied, but architecture and technology are harder. Patents are valuable only if they're broad and hard to work around. Something I often see in pitches is the easy-to-use differentiator. If customers say that it's a real problem for them that's significantly impacting their ability to make money or save money, then you can support the easy-to-use statement. So make sure you back it up with strong evidence. So how good is your solution story? Again, after the call today, I invite you to score yourself. What can you do to make the substance of your pitch better? Collect evidence, not assumptions. Be specific and quantitative, not vague. And engage your mentor advisor. Ask them if they agree with your scoring. If I can call out one important point in the scorecard, what will impress and excite your investor audience more than anything is that you understand your customer's economic value proposition. How much will your customers save or make with your solution? And also, how much money will you make? Again, telling the story through the lens of a typical customer like Acme. This is a great opportunity for you to take out your scorecard, score yourself, see how you're doing. So pause the video now and go do that, then come back and we'll continue. If people spend too much time talking about their product investor presentations, they spend far too little time talking about their sales and marketing strategy. Understanding your customer and your customer acquisition strategy is one of the most important elements of an investor pitch. but it's also one of the weakest in most presentations. Who is your customer and how are you going to sell to them? A good pitch balances a narrow, almost boring initial target customer and problem space with a plan to grow it into a big business. Your pitch needs to show evidence of how customers have reacted and engaged with you. Statements like, "We've spoken with 10 customers and they love what we're doing," is meaningless. It's a vanity metric. Did they say that to be encouraging and supportive to you? Did they say that so that they could just get back to their day job? I'd like to know specifically, what did they like about your solution? How does it solve their problem better than anything else? How much money could they save with your solution? What evidence do you have that they want to engage with you? Either feedback or trials or usage. Your only superpower as a startup is your laser focus on the customer and speed of execution. Your big competitors can do anything you can do, maybe better if they put their mind to it, but they're too distracted with other things. So stay hyper-focused and play to your superpower. In terms of who you're targeting, I need you to be very specific so that you can focus your very limited R&D, sales and marketing people and budget. But like in chess, you need to be thinking 3 moves ahead and tell me, the investor, how you're going to get from zero to building $1 billion business. Most startup pitches take a top-down tam-sam-som approach. Your addressable market, your serviceable market, your obtainable market. A lot of pitches have slides that say something like, "We're targeting $1 billion market opportunity." Boring. Worse, it's completely meaningless to me. Please, please don't tell me you're addressing $1 billion market. I much prefer a bottom-up market analysis. It's much more insightful view of your strategy. What do I mean by that? I strongly advocate for a crawl, walk, run, fly model for startups. Start with a very narrow, maybe even unapologetically boring customer definition. Get traction and then expand over time. How are you going to get your first customer, your first 10 customers, 100, 1,000 customers? It's kind of like knocking over bowling pins one at a time. This is where you demonstrate that you're frugal with investor money, pragmatic, fast, and operational focused, but still with big ambition. Amazon, as an example, started with selling English language books online to US consumers. Very narrow and boring, right? They grew from there in stages, then global book sales. They added other products. They grew into cloud IT services, video distribution, bricks and mortar grocery delivery. They started narrow and grew to world domination. Now, if they had started saying something like, "We're going to sell everything to everyone, everywhere," they might have gotten funding, but they would have run out of money long before they got to where they are today. You can't boil the ocean. So be pragmatic, start small, prove it works, but dream big. Crawl, walk, run, then fly. From the beginning of the AI 8-ball pitch, I've introduced the main character of our story, Acme Technologies, their current process, their problems, and how we're going to solve it. I can now build on that narrative by adding that there are over 500 companies like Acme Technologies in the US alone. Medium-large businesses hiring 100 plus software developers a year that are frustrated with their current solution from big vendors. It's real, it's tangible, it's narrow and focused, and a pragmatic lead bowling pin. Our story is so much more, of course, so you could tell the Steve Jobs, "Oh, there's one more thing" type story. Or you could say, "But we're not stopping there. In year 2, we plan to expand our product offering and our target market. And then in year 3, we plan to notice the bottom-up market size analysis." We're not saying we're targeting 1% of a $50 billion market. It's very clear how we've narrowly defined the market and how we plan to grow over time. VC investors like to see a growth model rule of thumb where revenues triple, triple, double, double year on year. This is how you can tell that story with credibility. So if there are 500 customers, how are we going to sell to them? At this point in the presentation, your investor audience probably has a feel for what a realistic sales model would look like based on your ACV. So you're largely just stating some underlying assumptions you've built into your financial model. For example, in year one, the founders are going to make the first sale themselves. But in order to scale the business, you're going to take a content marketing strategy for customer acquisition where you'll scoop up 1,500 raw marketing qualified leads that you'll pass to your business development team to qualify and hand off to your account executives who will close 1 in 10 deals. And here are some SaaS metrics built into your model. Of course, the numbers are just a guess to start with. Ask industry insiders what they've experienced. Maybe use internet research for rules of thumb. Numbers will look ugly at first, which is okay, and then they will improve as you find product market fit. If your revenues are showing a triple, triple, double, double growth rate, then you need to show that your sales and marketing spend is aligned and growing in tandem with your revenues. Show evidence that you're onto something big. Depending on the maturity of your business, it could be an evidence the story is resonating, such as discovery interview findings or pre-sales engagements. Or even better, show me evidence like usage and SaaS metrics. Usage is the best predictor of churn and growth potential. SaaS metrics give your audience a good insight into your business maturity. The numbers don't have to be all rosy. You really stand out if you say, here's where we are, but our target is to get there in the next 12 months, and this is how we're going to do it. So how good is your customer story? How well do you score? And what changes do you need to make to the substance of your pitch? Are you showing evidence of customer engagement? I'm sure you all have hockey sticks. Is your revenue per salesperson realistic? Again, ask your advisor mentor to test your evidence. This is a great opportunity for you to take out your scorecard, score yourself, see how you're doing. So pause the video now and go do that, then come back and we'll continue. As a potential investor, I'm looking for roughly a 10 times return on my investment. So if you think your pre-money valuation is $5 million, I'd like to understand how you're going to build a business that's worth at least $50 million. This is a risk-return analysis I'm making in deciding to invest in your business. In terms of risk-return analysis, it really comes down to these 4 things. Dollars needed to be invested in the business, what milestones you're going to achieve, your timeline to reduce risk, and your financial model maturity and underlying assumptions. In general, I recommend you don't include your financial models in the body of your presentation. Leave that for backup in case questions come up or when you're invited back for a second meeting. In our AI 8-ball example, I've broken the key financial metrics into 3 sections: your current situation, time-based risk, and traction-based risk at break-even. And of course, the key SaaS metrics are important for your investors as well. Again, how is your financial model looking? Is it realistic, credible, and investable? Score yourself and review it with your advisor mentor for feedback. Show me the evidence here really speaks to understanding how the forecast is supported by your strategy. For example, your revenue forecast should be a bottom-up calculation, starting with the number of leads, the cost per lead, the number of sales reps, and so on. It's about the strategy behind the model and how well your model and your strategy align. Also, I need to see that your investment in sales and marketing is aligned and growing with your revenue forecast. Too often, revenue shoots up while sales and marketing costs stay flat. Just not realistic. This is a great opportunity for you to take out your scorecard, score yourself, see how you're doing. So pause the video now and go do that, then come back and we'll continue. I recommend you leave the team section to the end of your pitch. Why? Because from the moment we met and within the first 2 minutes of your pitch, I've already assessed you as a proxy for your team. So sorry for putting pressure on you, but that's just human nature, which is why you need to open strong to establish credibility. Throughout your presentation, I've been assessing your experience and expertise through your understanding of the customer and your business. I'm also assessing your coachability through how you respond to questions. Things you've said throughout your presentation, like, I started this business because I've lived with this problem in the past, gives you credibility. Adding anecdotes and quotes from customers you've interviewed demonstrates an open listening and learning mindset. Building an awesome pitch deck that anticipates and answers audience questions showcases your expertise. Hearing and responding to audience questions and suggestions demonstrates coachability. A team slide could show your current full-time and active leadership team, and perhaps you can call out any highly skilled, relevant expertise that they bring to the table. It could then show how you plan to grow your team over time. No padding. I don't want the picture to be muddied with advisors or part-time people. Only show me those that are fully committed to the success of your business. Here's the team's scorecard for you to mark yourself in your pitch. This is a great opportunity for you to take out your scorecard, score yourself, see how you're doing. So pause the video now and go do that, then come back and we'll continue. So that's the scorecard. I'd like you to take some time after today's workshop and score the substance of your pitch. Where are you strongest? Where are you weakest? What do you need to work on to improve your pitch? As a broad brush rule of thumb, if you score below 25%, founders should be investing in the business themselves. 25 to 50%, friends and family can jump in. Seed investors will engage when you score 50 to 75%, and VCs will start looking closely at your business when you score 75 to 100%. As a general rule, whether it's an angel or a VC, you can't just show up to a potential investor that you don't already have a relationship with and simply ask them for money. People invest in people they know, and it takes time to nurture those relationships. Start building those relationships at least 6 to 12 months, even better, 18 months before you need the money. Provide quarterly updates to establish trust and demonstrate your ability to execute. Those updates can be in the form of an email or a phone call or a coffee chat, and should include things like advice they shared last time you met and its impact on your strategy. Here's what we said we would do. Here's what we did. Here's what we learned. Here's how we've adapted and evolved our business. Maybe share any interesting articles or papers or conferences so that VCs can educate themselves, because you know way more about your space than the VCs do. Ask them any probing strategic questions or investment climate. Then rinse and repeat quarterly. So that's the substance of your pitch and things you can work on to make it better. Now, here are a couple of other general hints and tips for you to consider. I don't expect everything to be known, complete, and wonderful. In my mind, you gain credibility points by acknowledging what you're struggling with right now, where you are on your journey, and how you think you're thinking about improving your early results, and that you ask for people's advice. I don't want entrepreneurs to blindly agree with me or to ignore me either. I want them to acknowledge what I'm saying, blend it with what they know, what others, especially customers, say, and then come back with an informed, tight response that's actionable. Okay, if that's the substance of your pitch, let's switch tracks now and talk a bit about how you package your story. First and foremost, the objective of your pitch in most cases is very simple: to stimulate enough interest to get another meeting, not to cover every aspect of your startup and bludgeon your audience into submission. The best result would typically be, wow, that sounds really interesting. Tell me more. In my mind, every pitch starts with an overview, your concept that's designed to ground your audience and draw them in. You'll have many variants of your investor pitch in your toolkit that you can pull out on a moment's notice: a sentence, a paragraph, an introduction, and a full-on strategy pitch. One type of concept pitch might look like this. It's a customer-focused, aspirational sentence that tells your audience what your business is about. And if you do it well, it should generate a response. Oh, that's interesting. We need to streamline our recruitment process. Tell me more. If it's not generating a response, then try asking a question like, do you think streamlining your recruitment process might help you recruit better people faster? If you still get crickets or a half-hearted response, then that's probably a sign that you need to change something. So go back to the scorecard. You might open a longer presentation with the one-sentence aspirational pitch, like I just mentioned, but sometimes you'll need more of an elevator pitch to get your whole story across quickly, to establish credibility and get an invitation to a follow-on meeting. A concept pitch could be structured like this. Company name is developing a solution to help an audience solve a problem with secret sauce and deliver economic value. It's much more formal and is designed to show that you know your stuff. Here's our AI 8-ball example pitch. Hi, my name's Adam Laurent, CEO of AI 8-ball. We're developing a recruitment automation solution that helps recruiters hire software developers 15% faster and reduce recruitment costs by 20% using a tailored AI engine to streamline the recruiting workflow and decision-making. Our customers are particularly excited about how we've trained our solution for diversity and inclusion so that you can hire better talent faster. Notice how I flipped our differentiator around. Our customers are particularly excited about, not that we're the only vendor that does, which is hard to say with credibility. Hopefully your audience reaction is, that's really interesting. Can we book a meeting to come in and talk to us more about that? Some tips and tricks to be mindful of. Be specific and quantitative. Avoid buzzwords and jargon. Skip superlatives. And you know you're onto something when your audience gets it and says, that sounds interesting, tell me more. As I said earlier, VCs will get something like 50 to 100 pitches a week in their inbox. They meet with 10 startups a week and they invest in 2 to 3 a year. Pretty slim odds. So how do you get a meeting? In an ideal world, you want a referral to a VC so that your outreach gets to the top of the pile. For example, your angel investors can recommend you to the VCs. The way I like to do this is I'd ask you to send me an email that I can then forward to the VC. My forward message might say, hi, Bill, I want to draw your attention to this startup. I've worked with them for 9 months and I'm an investor. They're doing great things and I think they're onto something big and have the team to pull it off. I think you should take a closer look. A cold call email can be hard, but it's doable if you have a good story. Either way, you need a compelling outreach email pitch. You'll also want to build a VC call list. Find VCs that invest in your space. If you're B2B, find VCs that invest in B2B sector. If you're early stage, find VCs that invest in early stage startups. If you're fintech, find VCs that invest in fintech. Then remove VCs that have invested in startups that are competitive or near competitive. An email introduction pitch might look something like this. And here's a breakdown of the key elements. You see all the pitch elements are in here. The metrics are solid. The value proposition is clear. You'd want to invest simply based on the email. No questions asked. No pitch or demo required. The email pitch has to stand alone and be compelling. And then, of course, there's the moment you've been working up to, the investor pitch itself. As a general rule, don't put anything into an investor deck that you don't want to end up in the hands of your competition. When you're in more advanced talks with an investor, of course, that will have to change. I really like the 10-20-30 rule that Guy Kawasaki came up with. You've got 10 slides, 20 minutes of talk time plus Q&A and discussion, minimum 30-point font. And of course, Apple has raised this approach to an art form. It's clean, simple, visual, powerful, and memorable. Telling a compelling story is a continuous improvement journey. Doing it right will take 3 months or more of test, critique, and refine. I just saw this the other day on my Quora feed, so I thought I'd throw it in for fun. Some of the highlights from the article from Enterprise Garage: what startups should never say during a VC pitch. I have no competition. Our solution solves this and this and this and this. Our market is X billion dollars and we need only N%. The space is hot. Our product is viral. Our financials are conservative. Within 5 years, we'll make hundreds of millions of dollars. All of these are examples of things that have no evidence, no credibility, that are factually not true and undermine you when you stand up to give your story. The other thing I want to particularly call out on the list is the need for an NDA. Investors will not sign an NDA. They also want to protect their reputation, so they will not steal your idea. You have to be open to share your information and trust that they will be professional about it. Here's a trick question you may get in your investor pitch presentations. What is your exit strategy? It's kind of a trick question. Lots of people would love to acquire us, like A, B, and C because, or with the breadth of customers we have, there's no reason we can't IPO, or I let the exit take care of itself. I'm concerned with building a great business and solving a real problem. First of all, that's the sort of question you may get from an unsophisticated investor or an investor that's simply testing your motivations. The correct answer here is C, build a great business. Don't build one you're simply looking to flip. It will scare off investors and potential acquirers fast because you're definitely making shortcuts that will hurt your chances of a successful outcome. Also, don't be steadfast on an IPO. Just focus on building a great business with happy customers and let the rest unfold. So your homework from today's masterclass: get a copy of this presentation and worksheet. Score your pitch. Where are you weakest and what do you need to focus on now to make it better? Test your pitch on peers and advisors. And when it lands and you're getting a, wow, that's interesting, I see why your customers would need that, then invest in applying the 10-20-30 rule. And of course, practice, practice, practice. So, as I said at the outset of the presentation, if you apply the lessons from today's talk, you will win pitch competitions. Everyone who applies the rules we discussed today will get investor funding, and you'll impress customers, earn their trust, and kickstart your sales journey. Contact me when you're ready for feedback on your pitch and your scorecard results. I'd love to see what you came up with. Here's a link to the presentation, worksheets, and how you can contact me. Thanks very much.